Hey, welcome back. I'm Lewis. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some techniques that you can use as a runner to improve your breathing whilst you run. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to this channel by clicking the button below. Also hit the bell so you don't miss out on any new videos coming your way. Anyway, let's get straight into this one. So if you're started running or you're an elite runner, then you'll know that your breathing is going to be a big part of what you do. Whether you're just starting out and you get breathless very, very quickly, very early, and that onset fatigue comes along, or whether you're an elite runner and you're really pushing the boundaries and really working at that top capacity and you're just breathing at your heaviest when you're working at your highest level, you'll recognize that breathing is a huge component of making running just that little bit easier to improve your performance. So these techniques that we're going to use are going to allow you to not only prepare, but perform a lot better, and also some techniques that you can use for recovering after a run to make sure that you're getting better each and every session that you do. So let's dive straight into the first one. First up is probably the most important one, which is diaphragmatic breathing. Now, this is how we functionally breathe. We're starting to strengthen the diaphragm because a lot of us breathe through the upper chest. We breathe into the upper portion of our chest, which doesn't allow us to get this full breath. So the first technique is just strengthening into that diaphragm by bringing some awareness to it and doing it more often. You want to notice throughout your day, throughout your exercise, your workouts, whether you're breathing into your upper chest or whether you're breathing into your diaphragm. And a great technique to do that is just simply, whether you're sitting, whether you're standing, whether you're lying down, you can do this by placing one hand into your chest, one hand onto your belly, and then as you inhale, you're feeling just that hand on the belly expand and move, and then when you exhale, you're feeling that hand fall down. You're keeping that hand on the chest still at all times. If you're lying down, you can place a book or a weight onto it, and you can start to try and move the book or the weight up and down using your diaphragm. You're strengthening into your diaphragm there. That is the most functional way of breathing, and the more you do that, the more you're going to be able to take this fuller, deeper breath, especially when you're running. Next up is breathing through your nose. So breathing through your nose is going to allow you to take a much more functional breath, and it's linked with diaphragmatic breathing because as soon as you take a breath through your nose, you actually trigger your diaphragm to function. So first up, it triggers the diaphragm, but most importantly, it actually cleans and filters the air as you breathe. So taking a breath through the mouth doesn't clean the air. We take in anything that is in the air straight into our lungs, but if we breathe through our nose, we actually filter that air, it warms it, it moistens the air so that it is much more efficient way of breathing. The other thing is that within our nasal cavity, we release a chemical called nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, which in other words allows our blood vessels to open slightly and allows that easier transportation of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide through the blood vessels using our red blood cells. So just breathing through our nose releases more of that gas, and it allows us to open up our blood vessels and transport oxygen and remove carbon dioxide much more efficiently. Another thing with breathing through our nose is that it is actually 50% harder to breathe through our nose. You'll notice that when you breathe through your nose, it is much harder than breathing through our mouth. That's why a lot of people breathe to their mouth. They go straight to breathing in and out through their mouth far too early because it is that little bit easier. So breathing in and out through our nose and restricting the amount of air in is actually sounds counterintuitive, but is actually a much more efficient way of breathing. The reason being is that we take a breath not because we want to bring in oxygen, but because we want to get rid of CO2. So CO2, carbon dioxide, is our waste product of breathing. And a center in our brain is triggered when we hit a certain level of carbon dioxide in our system, and it says, right, take a breath, bring oxygen in, and let's clear it out. But we don't get rid of oxygen to the working cells unless there is carbon dioxide present. Hemoglobin, the protein within our red blood cells, will not let go of oxygen unless CO2, carbon dioxide, is there to get rid of. So the more carbon dioxide that we can tolerate in our system, the higher level of carbon dioxide that we can tolerate, the more oxygen that we are able to release. By allowing that level to go a little bit higher, then we can start to get rid of more oxygen to the working cells, and we become more efficient at breathing and using oxygen. So by breathing through your nose, you restrict the amount of air that you bring in. That raises your CO2 level, and then it allows you to release more oxygen to the cells. It's called the Bohr effect. If you want to find out a little bit more, I will leave a link in the notes below so that you can have a little dive into what the Bohr effect is and how it affects your breathing. So those are just two simple things that you can do straight away with your running, and that is breathing through your diaphragm and breathing through your nose. The more you breathe through your diaphragm, the more you're going to strengthen that ability to use it, and the more you breathe through your nose, the more efficient you're going to be at using oxygen, being efficient using it, and also being able to tolerate higher levels of carbon dioxide. It can be tough to begin with. I recommend just jogging around to begin with and start breathing through your nose. Get used to it before you start increasing the intensity. There's no point you going out on a run straight away at the same level you would normally do and then trying to breathe through your nose. It will be a lot harder. It allows you to work at a lot more intense level internally, and it can be a little bit easier on your body because you can run at a lower intensity, but you can still work your systems very, very hard just by using only your nose. So give that a go. First up. Next up is using something called gear shifting. Now this allows you to start to understand the intensity of the runs that you're at and when to start moving from breathing through your nose to then breathing through your mouth. Now there are 5 levels to this that you can start with. And first up is breathing in and out through the nose. So that is level 1. That's where you would be if you're just taking a light jog, you're just moving around normally, and you're pretty able to breathe through your nose. It's pretty comfortable. You'll be surprised at how high a heart rate you can have and breathing through your nose. I've managed to get up to about 85% of my heart rate before and still be breathing through my nose. Before we shift through the gears, that can start to happen at the very high end. But it's worth noting that you can actually breathe through your nose at a pretty high intensity if you train it often enough. The next level up is breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So here we start to take a breath in through the nose and then out through the mouth. So that we're starting to get rid of carbon dioxide a lot easier. We're starting to force the carbon dioxide out. From gear 2, you move to gear 3, which is in through the nose and then out through the mouth a lot more forcefully. So a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. So really starting to work. So it's starting to get more oxygen in and get rid of that CO2 a lot quicker. The next level up is gear 4, which is in through the mouth, out through the mouth. So in through the mouth. And that's where we're starting to, again, bring in a lot more air because the mouth can bring in a lot more air and then it can get rid of a lot more air. And then finally at gear 5, in through the mouth, out through the mouth at a very high intensity, almost what's called fire breathing. So you're just starting to really go. This is where you're maxing out, you're at full capacity, and you are just trying to get that oxygen in and that CO2 out. The idea is that you then work up through the gears if your intensity rises to that level, but then you're trying to, in rest, or when you can, bring your gears back down. You're trying to get back down to gear 1 either as quickly as you can or as smoothly as you can. You want to be breathing in and out through your nose, again, because it's so much more efficient so that you can do that much more often. Finally, we're going to work on a warm-up technique and also a recovery technique. The warm-up technique is just simply starting to work on that diaphragmatic breath. So for the first 5 to 10 breaths, you'll start by breathing in through the nose, expanding through the diaphragm. You can breathe out through the mouth if you want, but try to stay in and out through the nose. And you're just working that diaphragm up and down. You're working just that belly breathing all the way through 10 breaths. Then you move to the next 10 breaths where you start to expand through the belly, then work into the chest, and then get a full expansion of the breath, work into the upper collarbones. You can also add into the sides as well, so really expand through the rib cage. So work this full breath, inhale, exhale, and you can start to increase the intensity. So really start to take a forceful inhale, expand the breath, and then forceful exhale. So you'll work 10 breaths, working that 3 parts to the breath before you work the final 10 breaths of really forcing the air in and out. And you're warming up all the intercostal muscles, the diaphragm, all the breathing mechanics and the muscles that are needed to help your respiratory system. And finally, we're going to work some recovery breathing. So this is a technique that you can use straight after your run, once you finish off stretching, and this is going to get you into that final recovery state again, that parasympathetic state that is going to make you feel much more relaxed and ready to go the next day or whenever you have your next run scheduled in. So you can do this lying down, either with the feet flat on the ground like I am. I'm outside, so you can just have your feet flat on the ground, or if you're inside and you have a bench or a sofa, then have your feet elevated. The idea is that you have your hips hinged at about 90 degrees so that you can just breathe easy. And also you've got your back nice and supported, so again, lying down is ideal for that. And then here we're taking an inhale for a count of 4 seconds and then an exhale for a count of 8 seconds. The idea is that your exhale is twice as long as your inhale so that you start to relax, you feel that parasympathetic state triggering. So hopefully these have helped you out and you have got something now that you can go and work on your running with your performance using your breathing. If you want to learn more about your breathing, or if you've got any questions, then feel free to leave them in the comments section below. You can also head over to Instagram @SportYogi, where you can send a message and find more content on Instagram. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to subscribe to this channel by clicking the button below, hit the bell so you don't miss out on any new videos, and I will see you guys next time.